Hello, everybody. You want to come on over? Let's get started together. You want to come find a place to sit? All right, we are going to spend a little time together this evening. So if you can come on over and find a spot, we will begin. Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for coming and hanging out here on the first day of the new year. Um, oh, that's nice. We are going to start off just a little bit differently today. Um, we're going to have a little chat time. And then today, at the end of our time together, I was thinking we could spend a little bit of time anointing each other with oil for anyone who would like to. We'll talk a little bit about that later. I have a few songs I'd like to sing, some music, and some time for reflection. But I want to start off talking about what everybody should be talking about today, which is New Year's resolutions, right? That's what we're all thinking about. Or have we given up? I'm curious, actually, I'd like to hear, has anyone ever actually accomplished, like set a New Year's New Year's revolution, a resolution and said, like, I accomplished it. I am not surprised.
When I was younger, I wanted to read equal time Bible to movies or videos.
Whoa.
So for every hour of Bible time, or for every hour of movies or TV, I got to read an hour of Bible time to make that.
Oh my gosh.
Within like 5 hours at midnight or whatever, and of the whole year.
Oh my gosh. So you failed. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. Just joking. That's amazing. Yeah, you're cramming it in. You your whole month of December was no movies, was it? No, that's awesome. Yeah, that counts. I mean, not die. That's a good goal. No, anybody else? I saw the hands. Yes, Gene. Wow. Can we ask how many miles? Okay. 2,000 miles. Echo. 2,000 miles. Running 2,000 miles. That's awesome. Anybody else? Anybody else? I don't think I ever have, in case you're wondering. Like, I don't have a great story of myself to share. I'll just say no. But I was curious to look around online and see what kind of New Year's resolutions people are making. So thanks to Twitter, we have hashtags. So let's find out. My New Year's resolution, be weirder. You may say that I'm already the most weird, but I'm very excited to test the boundaries of that statement. I'm like, yeah, gonzo. I like that. Cat Food Breath says, I was going to make a New Year's resolution for 2017, but I'm actually feeling pretty okay about not accomplishing anything this year. Happy New Year, folks. Remember, the best New Year's resolution is to invite a new best friend into your home. Adopt. Maybe. Anybody planning on getting a pet this year? My New Year's resolution is to start the year in a barely audible whisper and end it in a deafening roar. It's very deep. What does that mean? I don't know. It's Carl says, my New Year's resolution is not to make any resolutions. It saves on all the disappointments. And then 3 very confusing emoticons. I don't know what that means. But this one I like. New Year's resolution number 1, remove all people from my life who try to stop me from shaking and feeling every present under the tree. That's a good resolution right there. Hi, guys. So it's always educational looking at New Year's resolutions. But I would like to talk about something. I coined a phrase, but I'm sure someone else has coined it before. I'm just calling it spiritual goal setting, which is an interesting topic. I've talked a lot about weird things lately that I probably never thought I would talk about, and this is one of them. But I actually got really inspired thinking about what the heck does it mean to set goals in a spiritual context, which is obviously what we're talking about. When you talk about God things, you're talking about things of the Spirit. That's probably different. Has anyone ever talked? I'm curious, actually. Has anyone talked about spiritual goal setting before? Because I haven't. It's a new phrase for me. But it makes a lot of sense when you tie it in with a verse like this. And this is Paul speaking. He says, "Do you not know that in a race the runners all compete, but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may win it. Athletes exercise self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable garland, but we an imperishable one. So I do not run aimlessly, nor do I box as though beating the air, but I punish my body and enslave it so that after proclaiming the good news to others, I myself should not be disqualified." So I read this and I think there's a very specific sort of attack and plan that we make when we have, let's say, physical goals, right? How do we apply that to our spiritual life? So I'd like to talk about it for a little bit. Why would that be important? Well, let me do a couple definitions and then we'll kind of brainstorm a little bit. The first one is, what the heck is a goal anyway? Because a goal, thinking of desired results that we're trying to achieve by committing ourselves to some kind of a plan and some kind of a timeline. Now, if you use that definition, anything that you see yourself wanting and go after, make some sort of a plan, that's a goal. And what does that look like in a sort of a spiritual context? It means setting goals that will further your relationships with God, with yourself, and with others. That's all I'm talking about. It's just a different kind of goal. Goal setting is goal setting, but a spiritual goal is going to have a certain context, and that context is the kingdom of God. So, goals, why are they important? As we all know, goals keep us focused. Anybody else besides me feel like it's easy to get distracted? There's a lot going on. You feel like you can be doing a lot of things and not really getting much done. I feel that often. Like I'm doing a lot, but I don't necessarily feel like I'm getting somewhere. I was listening to a TED Talk by a guy who found out that there was an auction going to have lunch with 3 billionaires, 1 hour each, one right after the other. He didn't live in the state where this is happening. He was there for work. So he went to the person at the table and said, "Here's my credit card number. Whatever someone bids, just bid a little bit higher, and then call me and tell me what it cost me." Now, this guy's a business guy. He's wanting to learn, and he's thinking, business professionals, people who have made not $1 million, $1 billion. That's a lot. And so he really valued their advice. So turned out it cost him just over $1,500. And he had 3 one-hour sessions back-to-back with 3 different billionaires. And the one thing that he said that was common between all of them, he never saw one interruption, not one phone call, nothing. It was absolute, undivided, focused attention on him. Now, I'm guessing they were respectful of the fact that he, paid a lot of money to spend that time. But he got the impression that that was actually the way they lived their life. I think that there is something to this idea that when we are focused, it enables us to accomplish a lot more than when we feel distracted. I wonder about, all the busy things we could even busy ourselves with spiritually. Examples. Anybody? What are some spiritual or Christian things that you could do a lot of things? Like what? Like, finding places to serve, like going to church every Sunday, Bible study. You want to just keep going, Amanda? Just keep worship. All the yes, There are lots of things. We could spend lots of time and we could worry about doing, lots of things. But we can actually do a lot of those things, and many of us probably have spent a lot of time doing a lot of things and not really felt like we've made headway or gotten anywhere necessarily. So we need clear, specific directions to funnel our attention, to funnel our energy. And I was thinking about that makes sense why there have been huge movements in history where people left what they would call the world, their cities, their places where they lived, and would go out into the wilderness, into the desert, and live with nothing just to try to focus on God, because it's hard. It's hard to focus on spiritual things when everything around you is not really focused on that. It's difficult, and so people would leave, the monastics, people called them. So goals help us stay focused. The other thing, though, about goals, and this is a weird one thing about spiritual growth, is that goals actually help us measure progress, right? When you set a goal and you achieve it, you say, yay, I won. I progressed. I got somewhere. And when you set a goal and you don't get there, you're able to recognize, or even along the way, you're able to see how close am I or how far along am I. Think about physical fitness. How many different ways do we have of measuring physical fitness? There's like 1 billion ways to do that. You can measure it in all sorts of ways, and depending on what you measure, you'll be able to pay attention to different things depending on what you're focusing on. So, a goal is going to help us discover for us what actually works. How often do we maybe take somebody else's word for it or do what we believe we're supposed to do, as opposed to maybe figuring out for myself what actually helps me? What helps me get to this healthy goal? And I don't know what that does for you, but for me, that's very motivating. When I find something that works, I get really, really motivated, and I get excited about it. So I have never been a consistent worker-outer in my life until a year ago, September. I got like, I don't know what happened, but I just decided I was going to do it. And for a year, I was just like the most consistent guy. And over the course of that year, I found that certain things really work for me, and certain things really don't. Certain things I could actually get into and excited about, and other things I realized I hate doing this, and if I keep doing this, I will not last, And that was big motivator for me, really, really big motivator. What would it be like motivationally for us in a spiritual journey, which we are all on, if we found out certain things that really helped us in certain ways and were able to see, wow, like this made a really big difference? And, of course, how would we measure? That's a good question. So I would like to talk about some of these things, but don't have time to talk about everything that I want to talk about. So we might split it up over a few days. We'll see. But what I would like to do now is give what I'm going to call 3, I guess you call them guidelines, 3 guidelines, 3 instructions, recommendations for how I see this idea of spiritual goal setting unfolding. And you might find that it's not a lot different than setting goals in other avenues of life, but there are some really important differences. So, number 1, you ready? All right, here we go. Distinguish a good idea from a God idea. That sounds, cute. I could come up with a lot of really good goals for myself. You probably could too. If we sit down and are willing to take the time to think about all the things we might improve on, we could probably come up with enormous lists, humongous lists that would be depressing before you even began. But the thing with God and spiritual matters is that timing is a really big deal with God. Timing really, really matters. It's part of his graciousness in the process. What it means is you don't have to deal with everything right now. And that's really, really good. So now we have to distinguish, well, what is the thing? What is the goal that I can set now that's the right goal? And here's how I would personally distinguish. I have to ask myself the question, what is motivating me to accomplish this goal? If I'm being motivated by what I will call a performance mindset, which is I want to accomplish this because then I'll feel more valuable, or a shame mindset, which is I need to fix this because with this issue I'm not valuable, I would say that's not a good goal to pursue. Not that that goal isn't healthy in and of itself, not that that might not be something that you would like to develop or change about yourself, but that if you can't approach a goal outside of that mindset, it's not going to be a helpful journey for you. Because then certain things will happen along the way, which we'll talk about in a minute, that will be even more devastating. So that is my question. What is a good motivator? What is a good reason why I should pursue a certain goal? Any ideas?
Because you like the outcome.
Well, yes. I mean, I would assume that any goal we come up with is going to be a desired outcome. Yes. But what would be the motivator? Yeah, Gene?
Focus our attention
In the direction of?
well, whatever it is. I mean, like, generally, if we are able to increase our awareness of God's love for us and acceptance for us and presence within our lives all the time, if there's a little thing I can do,
Yeah.
in fact, even set myself a goal of doing that more often,
Yeah.
perhaps that will help me in my practical doing
Yeah.
to focus my mental, emotional awareness.
Yeah.
So
I-
it's taking something practical and physical to help guide something that's sort of potentially different.
Yes. The question I think is really difficult for us is if we ask ourselves, why am I pursuing this? That to me is the big differentiator between just a good idea versus something that God is saying yes. And here's how I do it. And you said the word love. I think it really comes down to if I can be motivated to pursue this out of a sense of love. We talk about the kingdom of God as a kingdom of us, not a kingdom of me. What that means is what I do isn't just about me, it's also about you, and it's also connected to a bigger thing that God is doing. In that case, if I can see a goal and I can see, you know what? I'm being motivated by this not just for me, because that can easily lead to sort of a performance mentality, but this is about us. It's about me and my family, or me and those I love. It's going to benefit not just me, but other people around me. And I can sense that God is encouraging me towards this really healthy goal. I can pursue it without a sense of needing to perform to make it happen, because it's coming from a different motivation. And that, I don't know, that might look different for different people, but that's as good as I can describe it. If I slip into the performance mindset, or a mindset that says, I need to fix this about myself, or, I'm not very valuable, I have to deal with that mindset before I can even set that as a goal. But there are certain goals God brings up, and you realize I'm motivated. It's a healthy motivation. It's not just about me. It's about a bigger picture, and I'm not needing to do this in order to make myself more valuable, if that makes sense. So that would be number one, is just trying to distinguish what are good ideas, but actually what do I feel like God is really inspiring me toward, and just pinpoint that one thing, which that takes a little bit of a process we'll talk about. Second is to invite. Invite a friend along who can, or who has, an active God connection. And that idea of an active God connection is simple. If you're going to pursue spiritual things, you're going to need spiritual helpers. And, I'm not trying to overly spiritualize things, but we are talking in a spiritual context. So if I'm pursuing a goal like a fitness goal, I'm really going to want to have a fitness expert or somebody who knows about that who can help me along the way. Yes? Yes. It's not fun to be the blind leading the blind. But if we can invite people into our spiritual process that also have a spiritual process going, my gosh, that actually does so many things. Friends can help us distinguish what's a good idea from a God idea if they also have an active connection to God. Have you ever thought, oh, this is a great idea, and you tell your friend, and they kind of help tease out of you some things that you hadn't even really been willing to look at yourself? I have. Friends can help us stay on track without inciting us to perform. In other words, when inevitably you don't feel like doing whatever you need to do to keep pursuing this goal that you've set, a real friend won't shame you for it, but they will encourage you and help you and nudge you back on track. And all of us need that. And then lastly, because failure is an inevitable part of any long-term process. Learning anything new, growing in any way is going to involve failure. And that failure always drives us to performance. When we fail, everything in us wants to say, no, I'm not a failure. And what friends are there for is to say, yes, you are not a failure. Why are you not a failure? Is it because you didn't succeed in this endeavor? No, you're not a failure because you're a valuable human being. Now, once we get that settled, we can talk about getting back on track toward the goal. And then, as I said before, friends, keep the focus on us, not just me. If I am going along towards a goal with someone else, as they're going along towards a goal, when we help each other, it can't just be about me, because now we're encouraging each other, okay? Lastly, is that we have to be willing to do something that we have never done before. That might sound obvious, but I'll say it this way. If you want to accomplish something new, you will have to do things that you have never done. And it's funny how often, especially in a spiritual context, we want to accomplish new things spiritually, but we're unwilling to do something that we haven't done before. Why? Well, it's awkward. It's new. I'm not good at it. I like doing things I'm good at. Don't we all? And yet, when we're children learning new things, we are told, you're going to learn long division now, and you're not going to be very good at it for a while. And something in us says, yes, that is correct. And we stick with it because we have to. Well, now that we're grown-ups, we don't have to anymore. No one's forcing you. But the process is still the same. We still have to be bad at something before we're good at something. And that's not something that adults tend to enjoy doing. So these new things that we get to do, what are they? New challenges / opportunities. New things that come our way once we set a new goal with God. And I guarantee if you haven't done this before, and you try this, this will happen. You will land on a healthy goal. You'll start talking with a friend about your new healthy goal, and you'll be presented with a challenge, an opportunity to fail at that new healthy goal. That will inevitably happen. It has to happen. Because we have opportunities or new challenges that come along the way that help us exercise that new muscle. And sometimes we call them assignments. So why do we call them assignments? Let's go back to math. Jesse? So your teacher teaches something new in class, long division. Here's how it works. Great. Here's an assignment to practice what you stink at. Why do we do that? We do it to practice. And we do it because we have to learn what we can and we can't do and what we know and we really don't know. Now, again, as adults, we have become very, very good at avoiding things that we stink at. And what I'm suggesting is, if we want to set new goals and achieve new things, even with God, and maybe especially with God, we will have to be willing to be bad at stuff, to fail once, twice, 7 times, 77 times. Now we see why we need friends around us, because what happens when you fail on the 78th attempt? If you don't have a friend around who has grace for that and who has encouragement for you and understands the process you're in, I guarantee the process will be over. It will be over. So, so failure isn't really failure. I guess that's the point I'm making. If you've been unsuccessful at something once, does that make you a failure? Absolutely not. The only way I can fail at a process is if I just quit, if I just choose not to keep going. That's the only way. But as long as I'm willing to keep trying, I cannot fail in God's eyes. So here's my personal example, and then we'll get to a few other things. So I used to have a business that was very, very difficult in the fall. The fall was extremely, extremely busy, very hectic. And if you've ever had to interview and hire people, or you've gone through the interview and hiring process, that's not fun. That was like what I spent all of August doing. At the same time, while I was going to schools and trying to sign up our program for teaching art after school, and then I was doing all these trainings, and it was just crazy. And then we would also have up to 50 phone calls a day of people signing up for class. It just was very, very, very stressful. And I had learned after several years that this was going to be hard. And I could tell one summer in June, I started feeling anxiety about the fall. So this was my goal. I felt like God said, and gave me this goal, not just for me, but for my family, for my staff, for everybody. That was, you need to become the kind of person that when all that stuff hits, you'll be okay and you can still be gracious to people. I just needed more grace for that season. So we made a plan. I invited a few friends in, and I spent the summer preparing. And it was unbelievable, the measurable difference between that fall and previous falls. I haven't had very many experiences that were that starkly contrasted. But it was huge for me. And it taught me that when you do set a goal with God and really include friends in the process, and you use the opportunities and you find the little things that you can do to prepare yourself, you actually can arrive somewhere new, even in such an intangible thing as be a more gracious person. But I recognized that I was okay where before I hadn't been okay. I think that what makes this kind of process different from others is the grace aspect. And the grace aspect is this, that whether I'm failing in my attempts, which means, I'm not accomplishing the goal, or whether I'm succeeding and doing really well, it's all part of the same process. Why is failing okay? Because when I fail, guess what I get to learn? I get to learn how God loves me and how others love me and how I can love myself even when I fail. And when I succeed, that means I'm learning how to tap more into God's grace for my life. So whether I'm failing or succeeding, it's all a beneficial process. I'm becoming a freer, healthier person, regardless of whether it goes well or not for me. Another way of saying it is that grace keeps your value and your dignity intact while you fail, so that you can stay in the process versus short-circuiting it before you get to the finish line. So I want to have a couple actions that you could do. First one is if you want to go anywhere, if you want to improve your spiritual life or grow, whatever word you want to use there, here's what I think it really is. I think we have to spend time thinking and praying about it until we can write something down that is specific and that we believe in. And we need to settle on that. Like that can't be something that's just like I have a vague idea in my head. It's very hard to pursue vague goals. But we can do this. We can allow God to bring something very clear and specific in front of us to the point where we can write it down and share it with somebody else, which is the next step. The next step is to really sit down with someone that you trust, someone that has a spiritual life, that you can say, will you help me as I'm going through this? Will you be someone I can share my process with and talk with? Will you, if you notice that I have stopped the process, would you actually be willing to invite me to a conversation where we can talk about why I've stopped and help me kind of get back on track? We use the word process a lot. I've already used it a bunch tonight. This is what I mean by being in a process. Finding a goal is a relatively short period of time. How long, if you sat down, you think, and thought about it, how long do you think it might take you to find a goal that you really believed in? Any guesses or experiences with that? Once you'd kind of made up your mind to find something? Usually it does not take me very long, like a matter of days. Enjoying success and celebrating the accomplishment of a goal usually doesn't take very long. The other 99% of the time is what I'm calling the process. It is that season of failing and learning and having friends encourage us and remind us and continuing to take steps forward. And that is what makes all the difference in the world. Then the last thing is that all we have to do is just keep an eye out for what our assignment's supposed to be. So I think God brings opportunities our way. Whether it's an opportunity here at a place like this and you realize, hey, I have an opportunity to practice something I'm learning at church. That's great. Well, most of us live with other people. Most of us have other people we interact with, and we are coming across opportunities all the time, assignments all the time to practice what God would show us. It's just hard to engage if we don't know why they're happening. So I'm going to finish with this. And then what I'm going to do is invite a couple of us to be available to anoint each other while we sing some songs as we think about this coming year and spend a little time in reflection. But let me just sort of sum up what I think our church is here for. This community of people that we have, this group of friends, I would hope would be a place where people can get into a process. And I hope you know what I mean now when I talk about a process. A process is more than just being friendly. It's more than just, being around and enjoying each other, which I'm glad that we do those things. But a process is inviting somebody into something that you stink at, but a process that you feel like God has laid out for you. And not circumventing that process, not letting it go, but together holding on to it until it reaches its final conclusion, which God will do. He will bring it to a conclusion if we will just stay in it. I am extremely passionate about that because I think that this is what actually changes our lives, and I actually think this is the way God designed it. Why else would Jesus have grabbed 12 guys and said, come on, let's live together for 3 years. Let's do this thing for 3 years that you've never done before. Frankly, Jesus had never done before. And let's fail and have ups and downs and challenges and assignments along the way. And then after a period of time, you'll graduate from this process and you'll start a new process, which will be inviting other people to come and learn how to do this. It's a very relational way of looking at things. And I think it's the way that Jesus modeled, and so it's the way we get to follow. And of course, once we learn it for ourselves, I hope that it's something we can offer to other people. So, simple question. If you want a process, I said that wrong. If you have a goal, or if you want a goal, all we have to do is be willing to ask. And that's a scary thing. But maybe it's already lurking back there. I think usually it kind of is. I think usually we're kind of aware of some things. But if we will take the time and choose to pay attention, I think there are certain things that will surface. Some of them will be very clearly performance things. I need to fix this about myself because of this, I'm not valuable. So those ones we get to set aside. I need to accomplish this because then I'll be a more valuable person. We get to set those aside and discover what God is bringing up that we say, I can believe in that. That's healthy for me. That's healthy for all of us. And I don't need that in order to become a more valuable person. Then we get to invite people in and we get to start the process. So I'd like to invite Josh and Amanda in. And we're going to sing a couple songs. And actually, let's do it this way. We don't do this very often. You are welcome to participate in this, or you are welcome to pass. But here's the deal. So we have these 3 vials of oil. And the oil, it's from way, way back. It talks about it in the Old Testament. And it talks about this contact where we anoint or we place some oil, traditionally we'll do it on the forehead. It is both a symbol as well as a very real representation of God's touch on our lives. So we do things like take communion. Communion is both a symbol, but it is also something that God actually uses to do things in us. Oil is the same way. There's something about these physical things that we get to do that have been passed down for centuries. That is a very real way that God likes to move in us. And oftentimes it's connected with refreshing, It's connected with the Spirit doing a new thing. It's connected with God's prosperity and his ability to do more than we, and have more than we ever think is available. And I like using oil on days like today because I feel like it's a great way to usher us into a new season with God. So what I actually want to do is I'm going to start this oil over here, and I'll start one in the middle and one on the edge. And if you would like to be anointed with oil, just let the person next to you know. All you got to do is open the vial, do a little dab on your finger, and give them just a little dot on the forehead. And as we go around, we can anoint each other while we sing these songs. And once you've done that, and again, feel free to pass if you want to. I want to invite you, sing along if you want, but you could also just take some time and think. Think about your upcoming year. Allow God to let things surface as they will. Actually, Amanda, can I give you this? And you can give one to the couch and one to the table. Allow God to let things surface, and then at the end, we're going to pray together. So let me get my guitar on here.
Walking on water is just the beginning.
pray together, and then I have one last chorus I'd like us to sing. God, we present ourselves to you on this first day of a brand spanking new year, where it feels to some of us like maybe it's the same as any other day of the year, and others to us maybe feel like the whole world is open before us. But regardless, God, you have created seasons. You send us around the sun once every year, and every time we come back around, there is some sense of newness, some sense of a new thing that you want to do, and new and fresh opportunities. And I pray that everybody, every single one of us, would walk into this new year with a feeling of all things are possible. That every day is a brand new day, and that every day is inherent with possibilities beyond even what we can imagine. God, would you begin to help us dream again? Maybe for some of us, it's reawakening old dreams that have kind of fallen silent in the background. Maybe for others, it's becoming aware of brand new things we didn't even realize were there. But either way, God, we know that you are an awakener of hearts. You like to bring people to life. You like to invite us into adventure and unknown. And you do it not because you want to scare us, but you do it because you're confident. You're confident in your own ability to bring us through. You're confident in the goodness that awaits us. Would you begin to instill in a new way that confidence in us so that we can walk forward, we can take steps each day, we can walk into the unknown, we can walk into things that we are not good at, knowing that failure awaits, and we can still have joy in our hearts and peace in our souls. And we can do it all with a sense that you are taking us somewhere. And that somewhere we might not know exactly where it is, but we know that it's good. And we know that it gets better and better with time. Only help us, God. Help us to just stay in it and not to go back to just what's just in front of our noses or what captivates or distracts us in this instant, but to be drawn by a bigger picture, a bigger vision of where we're going and what you're doing in our hearts and lives. And I also want to pray, God, that you would help us to help each other, because I do believe with all my heart that you have not brought us together just to sit in a room together once a week, that you've brought us together to walk together, to journey forward together, to find a way forward together, to love one another, to continue to encourage each other, to comfort one another, all those things that we need, all those things that even you were for the disciples when they didn't understand. We get to be you for each other. And that's a great process to be in. And over and above it all, we rest in the confidence of your power, of your might and your greatness, your ability to do what only you can do that is so beyond us. So would you give us little steps we can take and give us faith to believe that you're big enough to do the impossible. benediction, would you do something with me and raise your hands up? We don't do this very often, but if you're willing, would you raise your hand up and say, God, show us your greatness this year. Amen. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. We have just a couple brief announcements. One is that, man, I was going to put them up there for me. Next one. One is that right after service tonight, if you're interested in just having a little conversation time, Melissa, my wife, will be leaving here in a little bit with anybody who wants to walk down to the First International Tap House. Sit down for 45 minutes max, talk about whatever's on your mind, open up some conversation, and anybody's willing to go. So that'll be happening. The next one is that we have a men's open event. The Duck Basketball Civil War game is happening, and we're going to be meeting over at McMenamins on the 19th. On McMenamins on 19th, Saturday the 14th, 7:30 p.m. That's open invitation. Anybody's invited of the male persuasion. And then if you are interested in helping out or doing something on a Sunday, we have that beautiful blackboard that's up against the wall behind the greeting desk. It says Sunday service opportunities. And there's some different opportunities. If you wanted to sign up on a particular Sunday, you could put your name up there. That would be great. And finally, if you have children, please pick them up right away. And if you have something to give, there's that white offering box over by the door. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday evening. Thanks for being here.